Hello everybody. For today's video, we're going to be going over cosine rule. Now, the cosine rule has a slightly long formula, but it's actually pretty simple. It's just, I think the ending of that formula becomes a little bit of a tricky one to remember. But at the same time, let's go through all of them one by one and see how they are used. So, there are actually two instances where cosine rule is actually used. So you would use cosine rule, right, whenever you're given all the sides, right? So you have all sides, and you have to maybe like use cosine rule to solve for something or whatever, the sides and whatnot. Or you could use it when you have two sides and you're also given an angle, okay? But you'll see from the examples that we do, you'll see how it's applied. But let's get into the formula immediately. So the first formula that we need to know, right, is going to be the following. So let's say it's a case where we have to deal with angle A, right? If it's a case where we have to deal with angle A, then therefore we will start off by saying A squared, okay? We're going to start off by using the Pythagorean theorem, okay? So it's going to be A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared, right? So just as normal. But we're just going to have a small addition to the Pythagorean theorem here. We're going to say minus 2 multiplied by the two sides that are not opposite this side, angle, the angle A, sorry. So the two sides that are between, that the angle is between. I was trying to find the words to use there. So if the two sides are between the angle that you are going to use cosine rule on, then those two sides will be on the right-hand side of the equation, okay? And then the side that is opposite A, it will always be on the other side of the equation. Is that clear enough? Okay, we'll see the other triangles and it'll be easy to remember. So it'll be 2 multiplied by B multiplied by C, okay? Notice we still have B and C over here. And then we multiply by cosine, because it's the cosine rule, of angle A. Okay, let me write this in a different color as well, same as the blue. So notice that when we're dealing with angle A, we're going to have the opposite side on this on its own here, but squared with the Pythagorean theorem, but an addition of negative 2 times B times C multiplied by cos of the angle that we were dealing with in the first place. Okay, so notice how the A's are basically far apart from each other. Okay, this is a good way to kind of like remember it in that way. Okay, like if obviously sometimes you would just find it easier to memorize the formula, and find like easy ways to memorize the formula. Okay, so the next one, let's say for example we're working with the angle B. Okay, so let's say we had B now. It would basically be the exact same thing, right? But instead it's B and it's angle B. So we'll have B squared, okay, is equal to, now obviously we're going to now have the other sides, which is A and C. The sides that the angle is between, we're going to have on the right hand side. So we're going to say A squared plus C squared, okay, minus 2 multiplied by A times C, multiplied by cosine of the missing angle, which is B, the angle that we're dealing with, okay? Notice how the B's are also far apart over here. Same thing as the last one. And then this one, exact same thing, right? But with C. So let's say if we're dealing with C, then it will be the side C squared, which is equal to the sides which the angles between. So it'll be A squared plus B squared, okay? Minus 2 times A times B multiplied by cosine of angle C. Okay, that's the angle that we're dealing with. And notice how the C's are also far apart. Okay, so that is the way that you can kind of memorize the formula if you are in an examination. Okay, otherwise there are proofs that you can use in order to try and like memorize it. But usually proofs don't really help you memorize. It usually helps you, if you know how to do the proof, then you can actually get the formula. But it does take a lot of time to do the proof while you're in the examination. So let's get the applications now of these types of questions with cosine rule. So here's our first example. We need to determine the length of BC in triangle ABC. So BC is right here, okay? And notice that the angle that we're dealing with is angle A, meaning we are going to use the cosine rule. Why? Because we are given two sides and an angle, okay? So we need to deal with angle A, meaning we're gonna have side BC on its own, okay? So it's gonna be BC squared, which is equal to the square of the sum of the other two sides, okay? Which is gonna be 30 squared plus 20 squared. Okay. Minus 2 multiplied by the two sides that are here within the same expression, so 30 multiplied by 20 multiplied by cosine of the angle that we chose, which is 140 degrees. Okay, 140 degrees. And notice that this whole right hand side can just be put in the calculator. Okay, so BC squared is equal to, we'll put it all in the calculator. We should get an answer that is about 2,219.253 ... I'm gonna say ... because it's actually irrational. I think it's irrational. No, I don't think it's irrational, but it looks something like this, I guess. And then because I don't have my calculator, I can't even tell at this point. And then remember that we need to square root both sides to make sure that BC is on its own. Then BC is going to be equal to plus or minus the square root of 2219.253 ... Okay, just make sure you still have it on your calculator. Then all you need to do to keep that answer but take the square root is to press AC, and then you say square root and then ans, A and S inside, and then you should get a value that would approximate to plus or minus 47.11. Okay, but the question is, do we use a positive or a negative? Now remember, because we are dealing with just shapes, okay, these are only distances. You can't really have negative 30 centimeters in real life, okay? That would just be breaking dimensions, and we are not breaking dimensions right now, okay? We are doing mathematics at a grade 11 level, and we keep things more simple, okay? So it would be positive, okay? So therefore, this implies that BC is approximately going to be positive 47.11, and we can say, or BC is not going to be the negative version. I just want to add this part here because obviously it's important to know when to differentiate between a negative and a positive when taking a square root in. Okay, so there we go. We got our one side, which is approximately 47.11 centimeters, by the way. Don't forget about this part here. Okay, so we have example number 2. It says determine the size of angle B in triangle ABC. Now remember, the case where we can use cosine rule is also including when we have all three sides, right? So there's one where you have like one angle and two sides, and also another case where you have all three sides. And remember, we need to find the size of B. So meaning we can use the cosine rule. So how can we use it, right? So we need to refer back to the formula, okay? So the formula, we need to find angle B, right? So angle B needs to be in the equation, and we need to solve for it. And notice that angle B is right here. And the opposite side to angle B is 59 centimeters, meaning that side is going to go on its own. Remember what I said? The angle that you want to find, or the angle that you want to use with cosine, the opposite side needs to be on its own, but squared, okay? And then you continue the Pythagorean theorem with the other two sides, which is going to be 50 squared plus 30 squared. Okay. Cool. Then we subtract it by 2 multiplied by the two sides here on its own. So it's going to be 50 multiplied by 30 times cosine of the angle B, okay, which we don't know. Now the only variable is B, the angle B, okay? So now we need to solve for B. We can take we need to get this whole expression on its own. So we can take these two over to the other side. And then what we can do is we are left with 59 squared minus 50 squared minus 30 squared, right? Which is equal to negative 2 times 50 times 30 cos B, angle B, okay? And then from here, we can divide both sides with this stuff. But I would say it's best to first simplify both sides if you can. So if you simplify it, you'll get the following. So if you simplify the left-hand side, you are going to get 81. And if you simplify the right-hand side, negative 3000 cos B. Okay, great. And then from here, you can divide both sides by negative 3000 so that you can get cos B on its own. So it'll be 81 divided by negative 3000. And then therefore, if you obviously take the cosine over, you will have B is equal to arc cosine of 81 over negative 3000. And then we'll have to put this on the calculator. So angle B will be equal to arc cosine is when you say shift cosine, and then you're going to say 81 divided by negative 3000. And then what you're going to get is approximately, let's say the approximate, you're going to approximately get 91.55 degrees. Remember, it's an angle, so therefore it's going to approximately be 91.55 degrees.